Hello, I'm your host Hugo Pirela, welcoming you back to another special English edition of our digital channel En Castellano Llano, which in this case can be translated as in plain English, because it is not produced in the original tongue of our programs, which is Spanish, but in English. Some time ago, a friend in Massachusetts asked me if I could present, and I did, an episode of our channel about the Dominican Republic, that country in the heart of the Caribbean, but directed to English speakers to commemorate Spanish Heritage Month in the United States. The reason for that request, she explained to me, was the view that relatively few U.S. citizens know the fact that Spanish heritage, although spread throughout the whole of the Americas, really started out precisely in the Dominican Republic, or the DR for short. The great majority of the reactions I received from that first English episode was very positive, yet not all of them. But even the less positive comments were from people not criticizing what I said, but complaining that I did not say enough about the DR. Comments typically from Dominicans who wanted to hear more about their country. Of course, as I said, what I was requested to do was a program not for Dominicans but for US citizens. And probably I could not, even if I wanted to, ever say enough about the DR for a Dominican audience, especially in short capsules as the ones we normally offer here in our programs. Nevertheless, in view of the great popularity of the first experiment, I decided to offer new special English editions of our channel on how the seeds of the Hispanic culture in the Americas first took root in a place called Hispaniola, the first Western name given the island previously called by the Aborigines Quisqueya, where the DR sits. It appears that the Isle of Quisqueya was not really the first territory that the explorers arriving from Spain toward the end of the 15th century spotted on these lands then unknown to the rest of the world. In fact, they probably noticed other shores first, but the consensus among historians is that Quisqueya was the first place where they got off their ships, the first place where they planted an artifact, reportedly a wooden cross, the first place where they started interacting with natives, the first place where they began to spread their culture, impose their customs, etc. Now, I already indicated that not everybody was happy with our first English special on the DR. At least one guy wrote negative, even pissed off comments about what we stated on the history of this country. It is often said that history is written by the winners or conquerors, which is probably true. But even a bigger truth is that the historical record never ever comes out as a straight line narrative, and most often as a sinuous, often tumultuous process of multiple accounts, revisions, critiques, new revisions, and versions upon versions of facts piled on one another as different power structures or regimes come and go, and disparate oral traditions and cultural perspectives evolve through the centuries, until what we call history finally crystallizes as a contemporaneous accepted account of things past. And to complicate matters, the historical accounts in the last half millennium or so heavily intertwines with the appearance of what we now call nation states, that is to say, countries that were not even a thing 600 or so years ago. So different historical accounts often hurt nationalistic sensitivities that are taken very seriously by people. Scholars of history are usually trusted sources because they go through documentary records scientifically separating evidence-based accounts from fantastic or biased representations of fact. Now, in this channel, we do not pretend to give scholarly lectures on academic matters. Our aim here is merely to edify our audience in entertaining and plain-speaking manner. Yet everything represented here, not only in this special English edition, but also in our regular Spanish programs, is always based on professional sources that can be verified. Concerning the early history of the DR, what we say here is based on serious studies of people like Oviedo y Valdés, López de Gómara, Cieza de León, Benzoni, and others who are recognized historians of the time when our place in the planet was called New World by the Europeans, at the point when the Spanish heritage began in our continent. But dealing with the history of civilization is like negotiating a path through a quicksand pit of sorts. A treacherous terrain where it is easy to unintentionally step on or even offend somebody's ethnic convictions, cultural idiosyncrasy, or social prejudices, taken as immovable revealed truths. Take the word America, for instance, or more to the point, the idea of America. When I was studying English in the US, once in class I uttered the word Central America, and my teacher thought I was talking about the middle regions of the United States, some of which is often called Midwest. When I clarified my meaning, the teacher seemed to vaguely remember that the name America was historically given not to a country in particular, but to a whole continent, usually understood to be divided into three subcontinents: South, Central, and North America. Yet it appears that most people in the US and even in Anglo-Saxon Europe seem to take the word America to mean not even North America, but the United States in particular. After all, the other two countries that also belong in North America do not dare call themselves America, but Mexico and Canada. Such is the quicksand of history. Now, it may be a little known to a lot of Americans, but the Dominican Republic is the place where the Spanish heritage started for America in the original sense, that is, for the whole of the Americas. More to the point, the word America comes from the name of a person, an actual individual who lived in 16th century Italy. Now that guy, although coming from the same country, was not the same Italian whom by universal consensus is credited to have been the first 15th century European to encounter what we now call the Americas, and who disembarked in present-day Dominican Republic, Cristobal Colón, Christopher Columbus. Now, people might ask, half-jokingly, if the game was to designate these lands with the proper name of a man, how come the continent was not called, for instance, Cristobalia, say Christopheria, or Colombia? Such is the quicksand of history. Something similar happens with the word Caribbean, that part of the world of which the Dominican Republic constitutes historically and culturally such a prominent part. The word Caribbean, or Caribbean, as the word Carib, comes from the word Caribe, which was used originally in Spanish by the European settlers to designate a widespread nation of aborigines, including the Yanomami, the Guahibo, the Wayuu, and principally in the Caribbean islands, the Arahuacos or Arawak, today mostly known as Taínos, with their subnations, the Siboneyes, the Guanatabeyes, etc., that then populated the territories of present-day DR, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica, among others. The word Caribe came also to identify the somewhat internal subsea of the Atlantic Ocean, where the 15th and 16th century European sailors first explored the tropical regions of the Americas, El Mar Caribe, the Caribbean Sea. Culturally, the word Caribbean has emerged to identify the islands of this sea as separate from the rest of Central America, but also for cultural reasons. To a lot of Anglo-Saxon minds, the term Caribbean has come to mean only the English-speaking Caribbean. Now, the English-speaking countries in the region constitute a minor portion of the Caribbean isle proper. In other words, by far the biggest Caribbean islands such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the isle containing the isle containing the Dominican Republic and Haiti are mostly Spanish-speaking or speak other tongues. And this without mentioning the fact that a huge chunk of the Caribbean sea shores does not even belong to islands at all, but to far larger continental countries, also Spanish-speaking, where even larger communities of Caribes used to dwell at their leisure, as Venezuela, Colombia, and Panama. Such is the quicksand of history. The vagaries of languages and cultures, therefore, as well as those of political structures and power regimes, among other sociological and anthropological factors, tint the way we see and name things, including from the past. So, the Spanish heritage record in the Americas is chock full with the images and accounts of the power centers of Spanish civilization and domination that later came to be and flourish from the mid 16th century onward, like the unforgettable works of Hispanic American art and literature, or the great cathedrals and other expressions of the colonial monumental architecture in places like Mexico, Peru, etc. For the bright and beautiful ornaments decorating the bodies of the Taino Aborigines that they met in Hispaniola and different Caribbean territories, Columbus' party knew immediately that there ought to be plenty of gold and pearls around, which probably made them instantly forget what they came looking for originally. Remember that most likely what Columbus' first convoy was trying to find was an alternate route to India. So they originally were going after the India's species in order for Spain to better compete with other 15th century European powers in that highly lucrative commerce with Asia. So in all likelihood, the new type of treasures found in Quisqueya and around radically transformed the adventure and destiny of these explorers and of history. But the fact that at first they really thought they had arrived in India is apparently the reason that certain words stuck and lingered on. Some still to the present day, such as Indians, to designate any and all American aborigines, Indias Occidentales, West Indies, Indianos, first white Spaniards settled in America, etc. But the precious metal deposits found in La Hispaniola and other islands and seashores originally explored eventually proved too meager for the voracious appetite for wealth of the Spanish crown. So, as the conquest moved further inland in continental America, the center of action and history of Spanish heritage moved away from the Caribbean. Therefore, the truly great riches in silver and gold found in the eventual centers of the Spanish monarchical power give them, deservedly so, the preeminence as the most notable reservoirs of Hispanic tradition in America, Mexico, Peru, etc. But this should not obscure the fact that the cradle of it all, the place where this whole heritage really started, was the Dominican Republic. It was in the DR, for instance, where the first Spanish-style city was found in America, establishing the urban blueprint and model for all the other cities that came afterwards. The DR was the place where the Spaniards erected their first large brick and mortar buildings in America, still more in the so-called Romanesque style, although by those days buildings in Spain were mainly of the Gothic architectural style. And the Hispaniola was not only the first site for buildings symbolizing the religious and military dominance in the New World, such as the first cathedral, the first monastery, and the first fortress, but also the first site of Western civic institutions, such as the first university, the first hospital, and the first court of law, amongst many, many other firsts. If you like the topics that we address in our channel, I invite you to visit and watch us in the address shown in the screen, as well as to support, subscribe, and share it with family and friends. For our English-speaking audience, we are sorry we do not have regular captions in this language yet. But if you are interested in practicing Spanish listening comprehension, and at the same time learning on the interesting topics we offer, you are cordially invited as well to join us, support our channel, and share its content. Anyway, remote friends everywhere, let us appreciate our capacity to learn what we don't know yet, and also that today perhaps you and me know a little more. Till next time, take care.